So here's the thing, too. We can have fun and love the Lord. Like I always say, I love Jesus, but I love hip hop. So you can have both. Except for recently, I was driving to Reading, and I had on my hip hop music at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. to like drive and be ready, and I was convicted.
Why? Because who were you listening to?
I was listening to everybody, but I was listening to Beyonce, and I was listening to eventually 16 Carriages. Her new song came out, and I was listening to that again, and I was just like kind of crying with her about how hard.
Crying with Beyonce?
Well, her lyrics are so sad in that song and like powerful.
Do you think Beyonce really has a sad life? I mean, really?
No. But I do. Well, yes. Okay, so yes, I do think she has. No, not a sad life, but she has done a lot that's probably been sad or like difficult or trapping. That's why I'm like, wow. And she's like, I'm like, girl, you're fine right now. But yeah, definitely. Whoa, I can hear myself now. But yeah, I don't think she has. I don't know. Maybe she's trapped. Maybe Jay-Z is a pimp.
Jay-Z is a pimp.
Maybe.
Let's turn this into TMZ. Okay. Jay-Z is a pimp.
She went from her father, who was definitely
pimping her
out,
and then
he was.
Jay-Z started pimping Beyonce.
I don't know. They could be in love, but
yeah.
But I just think it went from the strong man that was like controlling her and her money and her whatever until another man. Hopefully they're in love. I don't know. But that's not what made me cry. That was like, oh man, I feel for you. But like hearing just some rappers and that I used to love, and Yin Yang Twins came on, Little John, what's his name?
You gotta wake up to Little John.
Snoop Dogg.
Okay.
I wake up to them. But I was like, oh, this is wrong. Like the things they were singing about were really bad. And I have just done the human trafficking training, so I'm like very aware of
yes.
that. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, I was like crying over the industry, and then I got over it and I woke up. But that's what wakes me up.
Okay.
Are you going already?
We're recording.
We're recording.
Okay. Hello.
Yeah.
So what other deep closet pleasures does Mariah have?
Besides hip hop?
Besides hip hop.
That's a good question. Like what?
I don't know.
What do you have?
What do you do that nobody knows about? I'm just kidding.
I read a lot, but not audiobooks. I do audiobooks. I just started getting on them because of Spotify. Thank you, Spotify. Shout out to our sponsor. Just kidding.
Our sponsor, Spotify. Thank you very much.
They do put us out there.
Yes.
But reading, I don't know. Okay, this is something I don't talk about often, but I do paint with soil.
How does that work?
It's been a while.
You just like get the soil,
So
like you add water?
I'll tell you, there's some good places around Oxnard and Ventura that have really nice soil.
Okay.
Oh, and one of them is the Collection. Oxnard Collection is really nice soil in between. So surprising, but in between the cars, like the Target.
That's
the Collection.
No, but
it's fake soil.
In
it's
between
horrible.
the cars, that's dirt. That's concrete. So in between the cars, cars are parked on a parking lot.
I'm sorry. Let me give you a better picture.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's like planter area.
Yes. Okay.
But like when you're walking to the Target, there's like an area with just like trees and dirt.
Yes, where the park is at.
So I've literally gotten out of my car with a spoon, and I have collected some of the soil from there and brought it home with me. And it's very dark. And it might be because it's sprayed with pesticides or something. I don't know.
Or feces, maybe?
Yeah. Ooh,
okay.
I don't know about that.
Well, because...
I mean, it's by the cars.
It's a public place where public people go and public people do things in the public.
This is Mika's mindset, where she comes from.
There's feces in the soil.
Well, that's true.
That you've been painting with.
That's true.
Okay.
But anyway, so I bring it home, and I put it in my... what are those called in English that you smash up like salsa or guac in? And they're like stone.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. There's a term, a
mortar?
mortar thing. Yes. Yeah.
So I back when I lived in Mexico, I would smash up my coffee beans in that because I was desperate and I had no grinder, and I was a coffee addict. So I took that knowledge and I was like, oh, let me smash up my soil. So I use it and I grind the soil, and then I use a strainer or a sifter, and then I smash it again after that, and then I mix that with gesso, the glue type, and a little bit of water, and you paint with it. And all these soils are different colors. And I don't do it often anymore because I don't have the space that I used to have. And so anyway, that's what I do.
We need to get you a booth at the Earth Fair.
Earth literally.
Earth Fair 2025. Mariah coming with her feces soil.
Oh. You can't call it that.
I'm just kidding.
Because I also get soil from really good areas that, well, they still might. You never know. Healthy
soil.
Well,
I did run into a girl, though, in San Diego many years ago. She had got stranded in Peru. Her and her boyfriend got stranded. They got robbed. And so the way that she got money to be able to finally leave the area was actually doing art from
the ground,
matters of the ground.
Interesting.
Using leaves, the soil, all of that type of stuff to.
There's paint out there that's made from like pigments from nature. It's really fun.
Okay.
I don't
know. My life is not that exciting.
I don't. Okay, let me say this was COVID 2020, and I had more time on my hands. Actually, there was like 2 weeks there that I had more time, and I was working through it, but the whole time. But somehow, I don't know. There's less interaction with humans.
Yeah.
You start making weird things. Well, anyway, this is Mika, you guys. Mika Harris.
Yes.
Mika's been on the podcast before. But we were in the upper room studio, and it was a while ago.
Yeah, that
was a great episode on, I think it was the wilderness season, like waiting, and Shane was on it with us.
Yes.
Well, this is like the next phase. Like we're going to talk about like work a little bit and jumping in. But first, speaking of work, Mika sent me a big list of all of her jobs since she started working.
Don't judge me.
I'm going to read them. No, this is awesome. No judgment.
This goes back to when I was 16. So I had to start working soon because I had a car and I had to get gas.
Yeah. That was really early age. So at 15 to 16, she worked at a print shop. She was a print shop clerk.
Yes.
And then if you need to stop me at any time to add something, go ahead. A retailer at Victoria's Secret at 18.
Bad decision.
Yeah, I bet. They snatched her. And then she was like, let's go. Makeup artist at sales for Glamour Shots. And then sales for Olin Mills.
So these are really old things. So
photography?
Yeah. So probably people that are your age don't even know like what Glamour Shots.
I know what Glamour Shots
Would you know what Glamour Shots
Well, I don't know that. No, okay.
Explain. So like where people would go to the mall.
Oh, yeah.
And they would do their makeup.
Oh.
And then they would go like back there with the photographer, and the photographer would put like a drape over them, and then they were like take these like glamour photos.
Well, I know like maybe a few years later, and we had that, but we did like silly photos in that kind of area. Instead of doing our makeup, we would go and like do silly. It was like the cool thing in the early 2000s, and they would print them out for us. Matt knows what I'm talking about. He's nodding. Yeah, and we would bring our friends in, and we like line up all awkward and like hold each other.
Okay.
So it wasn't probably the same thing.
Okay. Yeah, these were like more like, I don't know.
Glamour.
Yes, very glamorous. And then Olin Mills used to be the photography place back in the day where people you would take your families and go get your pictures taken.
Cute.
And, yes.
I've definitely done that.
Started to have a run with sales.
So photography studio. And then beer server for the Auto Speedway in Fontana.
Yes, I used to serve beer to the Budweiser bigwigs.
Whoa, yeah. She knows some things. Hair salon manager?
I did that. Yes.
I did that. She was a fitness studio administrator.
Yes.
Ooh, toddler daycare teacher. That's crazy. That's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work. I had to do toddlers again, thanks to Matt.
Matt Rowan. God brought it full circle. Honestly, yeah.
I did some babysitting, and I had to go back to my toddler days of being a preschool teacher.
Pull it out. I was 24. So assistant director at a children's center. She was 24 to 25. Holy cow.
I got promoted.
You got promoted. I was
really
like, at least
fast.
you're consistent.
Yeah.
Mailroom clerk. What That's so cool.
I got demoted. Yes.
She'll be with the mail. Accounts payable. Cool. Expense accountant. Expense accountant. Interior designer office assistant. Now she's getting creative here. Let's go. Yoga teacher.
I was a yoga teacher.
And then a massage therapist. This is where I've heard more about.
Yes, for 10 years.
10 years. Vocational education teacher for massage. So you're doing teaching, but for massage students. And then business owner for a wellness boutique.
Yes.
Ooh, you're like combining everything together here. And then contractor for day spas.
Yes.
To write services.
Yes. I used to be hired to go write services for people for their menus, their service menus.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. That was really cool.
Curriculum writer for college courses.
Yes.
Oof. So back with the kids. And then there's a line. There must have been a pause season. And then it says college director, foster youth caregiver. Oh, here we go. ABA therapist for autism community home, program director, social worker for disabilities, supports manager for social workers currently. So it seems like you kind of stayed in an area here. Is that the line that's right there? Is that like the same job?
Why did I put that line
it's
there?
Like that was like a line in the sand. Something changed for you?
I think there's a lot of changes, I think, in my life. So yeah, currently I manage, I work for a company. So let me kind of back up because this is an interesting thing.
Yeah.
California is super unique in the aspect that we have what's called these regional centers. So for people that have very severe autism, intellectual disability, cerebral palsy, very severe epilepsy disorders. The state of California has regional centers to help provide support to these people. So all over, we have 21 of them. So everywhere in California, people can get supported. So my role for Tri-County's regional center that supports San Luis Obispo, Santa Barbara County, Ventura County is to be a supports manager for some of those, what we call social workers or service coordinators. So I help support the service coordinators for that look over our infants and our toddlers and our preschoolers. I used to have other ages, but now my focus is infants, toddlers, and preschool age. So that's what I'm currently doing in Santa Barbara.
I love that. That's actually really is a full circle because you were with kids, toddler daycare teacher. I feel like you probably learned so much there that ties into what you do now, like also like knowledge into. I mean, everything works together. It's kind of wild.
I think, yeah, I do. I believe that. I think everything does work together. We have like these full circle moments in our life. I think what's been also very interesting for me is that being in a place of leadership, I didn't always really know how to like lead people well, and God had to kind of show me how to kind of do stuff. But like even coming into where I think the Lord has me, I think that's what that line was when I sent you the list, was that I started having these, before I even moved here, I started having these really crazy dreams because like I made a complete like career shift. So with all those other jobs prior to where I'm at now, I was going to school too. I was like going to college and stuff. But I was just having these really crazy dreams of just like seeing things that like I've never seen before, like, you know, and so it's like then God just started to like open up a door and open up another door to start revealing like, oh, wow, that made sense. That made
dreams
sense.
Like nighttime dreams or daytime dreams?
Nighttime dreams.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh. As a single mom, you know, when you're really busy, or a single parent, I would say like if you're super, super busy and you can't ever focus on anything, I think God will get us in our dreams. And I realized that for myself. It's like that's the one place where it was like,
that's so sweet.
Everything was quiet, you know, because I was asleep. So it's like, okay, this is where God can speak to me and would start showing me like where he wanted me to go, where he wanted me to be. And so sometimes then I would take a job and I'd be like, oh, that was my dream. That was like, so I was being shown where I was actually supposed to go. So if I landed someplace, I already had saw it. And so I just kept moving forward in that direction, which was so really interesting, which was what that line was because I made a shift to say, okay, now I'm just going to keep moving in the direction like I'm being shown to go versus moving in this other direction.
And sometimes it's just that we've talked about this before with a few people, but like just the next step in front of you, just like taking what's in front. And we'll probably get into that also. And so the job you're in now, you started at what position did you say?
I started where my current service coordinators or social workers are. I just came in as a entry level social worker. I was prior to that I was working someplace locally that unfortunately,
that on the list? Is it on the list?
Yeah.
Okay.
But unfortunately the management, I love the work that I had done, but the management there was horrible, and I was literally crying every day driving to work. I was driving up the 101 freeway. Just
Did I meet you by then?
In tears.
I wonder if were you at the old building of our old church?
We had not met yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And
I remember hearing about
this was like prior to the Thomas fires.
Okay.
I think we met after that. And so, yeah, I was crying and crying and crying. I just did not want to work this place. And I would go home and I would pray and I'd be like, I want to get out of this job. And I ended up opening up the Word of God one day, and God gave me a portion of Joshua.
Oof.
That was like, taught when God was talking to Joshua and basically telling him that you're going to have to tell the people, like, I've given you rest. Now you're going to have to take, basically, your armed men, you're going to have to go onto the other side of the Jordan to go give your brethren rest. Once you give them rest, then you can come back.
Wow.
And so it was a time in my life to where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to leave my job until God has done whatever he needs to do through me to give these people rest. And then he would give me rest. And so I just kept going, wow. Even though I knew that I didn't want to be there, but I had to, that's
like ending well also.
Yeah,
right?
And very much so, because I was like, okay, I have to be in a season of being uncomfortable so other people can be comfortable for whatever reason. And when the Thomas fires hit, I started praying at that moment, like, oh, do I evacuate? What do I do? And I heard the Lord tell me to leave.
Wow.
But it wasn't about the Thomas fires. It was about that job. Oh,
yeah.
And
so God made a way for you.
Yeah, made a way. Yeah. And so I called my employer and I gave them a 45-day notice, very generous 45-day notice. And the day that I was leaving that job of discomfort after a season of obedience, that same day I was offered a position with the company that I'm at now.
Whoa.
And but I took a entry-level position just because I wanted out.
Yeah.
Like I just took a very basic entry-level position, and I showed up. We talked about this right before the podcast, but I was like, I showed up. I had like this nice little welcome basket on my desk. And it was just this beautiful display of like, we got you. Like they didn't know me my very first day. They just had all of this beautiful stuff set up. And so it was sweet. Just a confirmation, like, okay, you've served in discomfort. You gave these other people rest. God now removed me from it. And like, now gave me my rest back.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I feel like there's few things that people can really, hopefully you hear this, but like I don't know if it's a millennial thing alone or if it's just a human thing to hop and go quickly and be impulsive or also kind of selfish, like me, my ego, and like I don't know if ego is the right word, but like what I want, it's serving myself. So, and I want to go quickly and I want to do this. And when you are a believer and you are abiding in the vine, and John 15, the Bible talks about abiding, he directs you and he shows you, like, you can hear him, walk with him, and hear him say, like, nope, not that way, not that way, like, just keep going. And I feel like you can hear when he's saying, like, wait. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's time to go. Like, there's times to stay in something anyway.
Yes.
And people are so quick to jump because it's uncomfortable. But then there's also like you staying in something way too long past the like grace for it. And the Lord said go, and there's like, it's time to go and to not be afraid. And there's like maybe other reasons why someone stays. But to like, if you're walking in step with him, it's a lot easier.
Right.
But it might not be so clear.
Right.
Like you were just taking, and Ashley Nettles, one of my bosses was here, and she said something similar, but like just the next thing in front of you often. And you said entry level job, like that's how you start sometimes. Yeah. Why are we not okay with that?
Which I would have never have done, but God, God showed me that he was going to still take care of me in that, and he has proven himself with that. And and I think what you have said with moving, what brought to mind was, there was a period of time where the Israelites they had to start paying attention to the cloud,
Ooh,
and it's like the presence of God would fall upon the camp. And that was like their sign to say, now we need to stay. And then when the presence of God was lifted, the cloud would move away. Right. And then all of a sudden they were able to set out at that moment.
Yeah.
And so it's like we have to come to a place where even in our work life, we start to pay attention to the presence of God.
Good,
Is this cloud still here? And that's what was happening to me, even though I was in a position to where I didn't want to be there. The cloud had not removed to where the Spirit of God was saying, now you can set out.
Yeah,
it was
good.
like God's like, I still have you here in this
here.
place. And even if the Lord removes us from a situation, it doesn't mean that he's done doing a work there. He's just doing it differently. He just doesn't need me to be there in order to accomplish it. Right. So like sometimes, like you said, like we don't move when we're supposed to, and sometimes we take too much responsibility for something that God's like, I didn't ask you to be the savior of that company.
That's my problem, probably.
Like
staying too long because I'm the one helping you.
My presence is gone, so now it's time to go. Right.
My gosh.
So you have to pay attention to the discerning of the Spirit.
Sometimes you're like, I often have to tell myself this, like, especially when God has told me go and I'm afraid. It's usually because fear of man, and I don't want to.
You feeling like fear of man, like disappointing people?
Disappointing people. Okay. That's like my biggest fear. I guess it's not really. I guess a fear or my biggest like hang up that the Lord works with me with is disappointing people. Like feeling their disappointment is like. But in workplaces, it's not just disappointment. It's like your whole business, like you're relying on me. And the Lord's like, always like, Mariah, I am so much more than you. And what he always says is like, you moving is providing someone else to have that job. Like me moving a few of my jobs, I've seen him position people who don't know God into my old job, and just like blessing their lives, and me getting out of the way has been a blessing for them and blessing for the people who the bosses. But I just get so hung up in like, I'm gonna disappoint them, or they're gonna hate me forever, they're gonna be so mad, or and it's like, when you care about what God says, not that people don't matter, but it doesn't matter as much as his voice and your own life, and trying to
understand you can't
what's best for you.
You can't hold them, right? You have to be faithful to whatever God's asking you to do in people's lives in that moment. But there comes a point where you can't hold them, right?
You got to listen to his voice. And so the next, like, how, because did you know God in that? You knew him for a while.
So I became saved when I was 23. So probably it was like right before that time of
around the
becoming
toddler daycare time,
around that toddler
right
stage.
Before that.
And I think what was interesting about that was I accepted the Lord. Like I had was introduced to Jesus when I was like 4, but I didn't grow up in a household to where it was like, outside of periodically going to church, I wasn't like a youth group kid and all that stuff. I didn't know that. And especially in my high school years, I was like, that's when I probably needed Jesus the most, and it was like not there. And so I made a lot of crazy decisions. But when I had my children here in California and I became a single parent really, really young, I knew that I couldn't stay here. I couldn't afford daycare. It was impossible to afford childcare for 2 kids. And so I knew I had to move. And so I didn't have the provision of childcare here. And I moved to Kentucky with some family and didn't know anything about the area. And what ended up happening with this job was that through that job, I was provided a job and I was provided free childcare. Wow. And so it was just this major blessing of being faithful to move. But I had accepted the Lord right before I left California, accepted the Lord, and I moved. And then God opened up this door to where I can have a job and actually have my childcare. And then immediately, I mean, I only worked with the toddlers like 6 months, so I really can't say I did a lot. But I worked with them like 6 months, and I found that somebody was going to be leaving that was in a higher position, and she told me about it, and she put my name in, and they hired me, and I ended up being the one of the assistant directors for the place for a while, which opened up a lot of other doors, which was so good. Provided a lot of favor. Yeah,
I feel like the theme that we're hearing through your life is saying yes, and like God opening doors and the favor of him like in those places. And something we were chatting about before is something that like this podcast is kind of all about, and just a theme in my life and something I've been really loving talking about and learning about, that there is no divide between secular and sacred.
I think that's why this has been a really good season of the podcast. It's been really neat to listen to.
And it's like, I think I've mentioned this before, but I've talked with friends who are just like, they're in difficult jobs that are not church working, not ministry jobs. They're out doing like FBI work, or someone who's a lawyer or a teacher. And it's just like, this is hard. And I wish I could listen to someone. I wish I could hear from someone who's done it, who's a believer, who loves God and is living like in love and loving people. I wish I could hear how they're doing it well and not burnt out, or like, you know, because a lot of times it's exhausting to be out in the world and in a system that's not of the kingdom.
Right.
And how do you shift the atmosphere into your workplace? And but just seeing that's something that really inspired me. Like, okay, let's start talking about this and inviting people to share in your job with like social work and in the foster system. Like, how do you stay healthy, and how are you, and that's like a noble, that is the church. Like, that is beautiful. And it's not like, that's just the theme that's throughout all of these episodes in my desire. But yeah, like there's no divide.
Yeah, and I think that becomes, you have to come to a place where, like you said, it's all for God, right? It's all kingdom work. It's all kingdom work. But we don't always recognize that at first. So just like a little juicy gossip for you.
Ooh,
you know, because I didn't always understand that right away. So it was just kind of like, I went to work and then I went to church. I went to work and went to church. Those were two separate things. Like, you know, fellowship with believers was completely different, like than just
like different lifestyle, or just remote, like your head just
I think almost even a different lifestyle, because if you don't blend the two, it's like you're just kind of operating differently, right?
Completely different groups.
And so I was when I was working in a college as a college director, I was had to step into support one of the classes. It was like a Christian vocational school for like massage therapists, other vocational people. But we had once a week, all the college students would take this like spiritual class. It was like a Bible class and spiritual nourishment, they used to call it. But the teacher was out. And so I had to step in to go teach. And the subject was on the Beatitudes. And we start getting into the topic of adultery. And so I'm going through these things, and I'm like going through them. And then after the class, one of the students, she comes into my office and she says, so I have a question. She was just like, I am still married. She was like, but we haven't divorced yet. She's like, eventually we are, but we're kind of figuring things out. But I have a new boyfriend and we're living together. And she just starts opening up. And then she says, is that adultery? And so I was like,
whoa,
well, yeah, let's kind of talk about like, so we start having this conversation. But then
was that one of the first times that you've talked in your workplace about God, or like?
A little bit. I think as far as like blending my life together, I think so. And I ended up having to though say to her, I said, but I'm currently allowing my boyfriend to live with me at home. So I'm no different than you, you know? And I realized in that moment, I was like, what are you doing? Like I told myself, like, what are you doing? Like you're supposed to be representing the kingdom in all environments. And so I literally had to go home and start unveling that situation.
How can I help you if I'm not
right? Because I was being a hypocrite, right? You know, and so I had to go create a more Christ-like environment in my home first. Then authority. I can start to create a Christ-like environment at work, and then so that changed the game for me as far as really representing the kingdom of God rightly without being a hypocrite. For one, so that was major. And then I think the other piece of it is like you also can't still stand in your authority in Christ if you're not under Christ's authority too, you know. So that's just huge, you know, because sometimes we just do all the things that we want to do, you know. It's like, oh, I'm going to have everything my way, right? Yep. So it's like we put whatever we want to put on the salad without anybody telling us what to put on our salad, you know, without checking in, no checks and balances on anything. But then we want to go to work and try to do kingdom business. And it's like, whose authority are you
There's
under?
no power. There's no, it's like the disciples, you know, and the demons were like, or I forget exactly who it was. We probably know, but like the demons recognized who I know who this person is. Who are you though?
Yeah.
Like you don't have any authority, you know? I'm totally pulling that out with somewhere in the New Testament.
Yeah, where he was like, I know who Paul
Peter
is,
and
but
Paul,
I don't know who you are. Yeah, right.
And then so many people are like, well, why isn't it working? Or how come my life doesn't look, how come? It's just, you know what? Maybe you don't have the authority. Maybe it's like taking out the plank of your own eye, in your own eye. And how can you help someone else if you lack any submission to him?
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's really good.
Yeah. So I definitely had to go through a period of time where I had to take the plank out of my own eye, but I had to start recognizing certain things and just get my household right, get my own self right, get my household right. Before I had an expectation of making an impact. Yeah. Because I think that we're all influential.
Definitely.
Right? In various ways. We're either going to stir somebody in a good direction or a bad direction, or people are going to pick up good or bad habits off of us and we might not even realize it.
It's true.
But before I can start to have an expectation of, now I'm going to be stepping into my workplace and actually having an impact, I had to take care of myself first, you know. So that was a big part of it. But because I'm in a healthy state, I think spiritually, I'm not perfect, but because I definitely honor the Lord, I honor his authority, and I honor holiness in a different way than I have ever done before, it's created a space at work to where then the people that I'm able to serve and support, because I don't feel that managing them means I manage them.
Okay.
I serve and support them. So in the way that I can serve and support the people that I've been, you know, given the privilege to take care of, I can only do that because I have a healthy relationship with the Lord.
And there is that aspect, like what we're talking about, of influence, and you're able to shift things. You're able to, like you said, with that one person, but in a workplace, like you can shift things in the atmosphere. You can pray. Like I think you've shared with me about prayer in the workplace.
Definitely. Yes.
Do you want to share what that looks like for you in your workplace? Because you can't just go around like shamala, hamala, like, Jesus, hallelujah. Like maybe you can go walk and put a hand on someone and be like, I love you. Like you're praying, but you know, what does it look like for you?
I just casually put my hand on their shoulder and I just transfer power and they just start convulsing. No, just kidding.
The dunamis power of the Lord, just one finger. Lord. Yeah.
I walk up and I spit in their eyes.
Jesus.
Just spit in their eyes.
Like what?
No. Just kidding.
Yeah, what do you do though in the workplace, especially there? Like, and you see some hard stuff. There's difficult things.
It varies. So I mean, we unfortunately we get exposed to things. So that my service coordinators, they look over so many families, so many kids, and so for a period of time, my team had like about 1,000. I think we're like at 600 something because we have a lower age group now, but they just have massive jobs, and so sometimes the things that come through is just a lot. So sometimes it's just background prayer, you know, like before I leave to work, it's just praying for them, praying that their day is going to be okay, praying that, you know, they have peaceful sleep at home, and just all kinds of things to be able to help them and ready them. So sometimes it's that they don't even sometimes know that I'm praying for them. Right. And then other times it's things come up. You know, we recently, a couple weeks ago, had a couple kids that were detained, that were removed from their family's home, and that was really difficult. Or sometimes we have, unfortunately, in rare situations, we had a couple months ago, we had a baby that passed away, and you know, and so the social workers, they take all of that in, you know, and so sometimes it's also praying for whatever they're going through. It's praying for the families, it's praying for the kids. And it's just praying for just everybody to be supported, however God's going to take care of them. But then other times it is direct. You know, I do regular check-ins with my team where it's like a one-on-one, like, hey, how are you doing? Yeah. Work and well-being. Let's talk about it. So, you know, like I want to know, how are things at work? How is your well-being? How's your family life? How are you? Like, we just get into
creating a healthy workplace,
a conversation. And so in that, you know, when they feel safe, they will sometimes reveal certain things that they're going through. Wow. And so there are times where one-on-one in that moment, you're sitting in my office, it's like, you know, are you comfortable with me praying for you?
Just take that step out.
Just saying to them, just so you know, I will be praying for you.
Yeah.
And then being able to trust that. It doesn't have to be weird. It does, you know what I'm saying? It's just like a thing to where it's like, you just let them know. And sometimes them just knowing that they can trust me to know that I'm going to be praying for them while they're going through this is enough of an encouragement. It doesn't have to be a weird thing like, grab my hands now. Let's
bow
go
your
ahead
head,
and pray.
close your eyes.
Because at the same time, our workplaces are, the rules of the game are not necessarily always up to us, right? And so we also have to be sensitive to those boundaries or different things of that sort.
But it's so cool that we can access the not rules, but the way of the kingdom without, even in the midst, I think of like the captives in Babylon and Daniel, and he was like best friends with King Nebuchadnezzar. That's what I've heard. They were like close. And as much as the king was kind of wild, like putting him in really rough positions.
Well, some of us have some wild friends,
it's
right?
It's like, what? You're trying to kill me right now? You're just dropping me in the lion's den? But they know, there's those rules that they are like, well, I got to do it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't bow down. You didn't, But where was I going with that? But like we have access to a different realm.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things, I feel like people aren't trapped. Like I just want people to have the hope and know that you are not a victim to your workplace and what's happening around you. You can, like you're saying, like shift things, even in subtle, maybe covert ways.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, if somebody's having a really difficult time with people's just personalities, I think personalities are just difficult, right?
Yeah.
So if you're just having a hard time with the people that you work with, there's friction or they're rude or whatever, they smell, I don't know, like whatever is that hard thing. It's like, pray over that. Pray that they get a new deodorant. I don't know, but just
give them one. Happy
pray
birthday.
that they get a holy deodorant. But no, just start, like you can be actually influencing, like you said, you can influence the atmosphere through your prayer life. And it's like, just sowing into that, like pray that God brings other, faithful believers into the atmosphere, into the workplace, or people who are just curious about him, or people that are soft-hearted, whatever is needed, like start actually praying for that and praying for like things to maneuver and change within people that you actually work with as well, and not necessarily wish them away or want to just dismiss them or fire people or just hop jobs, because there's the world is going to be in the other job too. So you have to learn how to be successful where you're at, for sure, and it's just like, don't hop chaos to chaos to chaos, and you're just kind of leaving stuff, it's
Mika.
Like, like, don't get me started. Like, you'll get
started.
That little like blue light, that people like take.
You have a blue light.
The blue light that people take into like environments and hotel rooms. You're like, look at all that stuff you left behind. It's like, you don't want to blue light people's path, like when they're like walking from one job to the another. You're just leaving a nasty residue because you don't know how to steward your environment well. And sometimes it just means just start praying over the people and stop criticizing everything that's happening. People are broken and they're hurting,
That's so good. Okay, like, instead of being like, wow, what?
Yes,
it's like you are supposed to be influencing the culture, them, not the other way around.
Yes.
Oh,
yes. Because all kinds of things come up, and so it's like, I don't know. It's hard. I think one of the things I had difficult that kind of happened last year that I had to really even think about too was not even over the people, was over the politics, because we love the state of California. They're so wonderful, but they're so open about everything, right? But
when you say we, you mean
just we in general.
We. Yeah. We're here.
I know you pray over California all the time.
I do. It's a love-hate.
Right. The coastlines are so beautiful. This is honestly the best state to live in.
But seriously though, we pray.
But there's just stuff that happens, right? And so the state has things that happen. Our workplaces have rules that they put in place. And I remember in a meeting, they were asking us to have a new way of how we introduced ourselves to people, and the way we were supposed to introduce ourselves as our name and our preferred pronouns.
Oh, yeah.
And that was one of these things where I was just like, no, see, that's probably not going to happen. Like, you feel free to do you.
Yeah, you do you.
But for me, I'm not going to introduce myself as a preferred pronoun because I know who I am. And I also can't necessarily, I can respect if you want to be a they, but I can't call you a they because that's also not biblical. And it goes against, for me, it goes against the word of God, and I just can't. So it's always
how do they
to
respond
find that
to that
balance.
What does that look like? Because like, yeah, how do they respond to that? Or do you just bring it up?
So, yeah, sometimes it's just like a silent, like, this is my position, and I'm just not going to.
Okay.
I can hear you. Mm-hmm. I can sit in this training.
Yeah.
I can hear you. I can respect where you're at. You're okay. I'm just not going to. And if it came to a place of being enforced, I'm going to have to stand my ground on that. Dang. That is a hard no. Dang. And so it's like, I think we have to kind of learn like where
your convictions too.
Yeah. Like how do we properly support people, but at the same time, we do have to be able to stand with our convictions. Wow. And again, I think that also goes back to making sure that we've taken good care of ourselves, because I think some people can have these really hard convictions that they're standing on, but they're also not living for the kingdom. Ooh. And so I think we have to really take good care of ourselves so that when we do have to stand on our convictions, it is coming from a place that is really authentic, That's so good.
Yeah. That is so good. What does it look like because you're boss woman now, like you were sharing today, you're going to go like do something for other people, someone else that's coming in. Mm-hmm. What they did to you, you're now taking it there. You said that when you started, they gave you like, here's your space, here's a welcome. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, was it a basket?
Yeah.
Welcome, here you go. Yeah. And now you are in turn doing it for other people.
Oh, yeah.
And like, what does it look like to have a back? I guess it's still with the shifting the atmosphere, like influence in your place, but like to have a workspace that's not dramatic and like just... how do you it sounds like you are blessing people and you're like, welcome into something that's peaceful.
Yeah.
But
yeah. Oh my gosh. I guess drama.
Yeah.
I don't care about it.
Yeah. I
don't want to be about it. No, but it's, I think that's interesting because
you laugh a lot.
Laughter is important.
Are very fun.
I have been blessed with the greatest team right now. I have tons of these young, vibrant gals, with the exception of one dude right now. I have one dude.
Shout out.
One dude. Shout out to you. Because I know you guys are listening. But I have this vibrant, wonderful team right now that they're just so energetic, and they're all like, they just really love to like hang out and be together. And so I have to recognize where my team is at with their personality, with their likes, with their desires. And I have to support them to be who they are.
Really good.
If you all want to go to the bathroom together at the same time, because you guys are that type of girls, like go to the bathroom together. I don't care. Go on walks, hang out with your families together. I don't care. Yeah. Like have a good time. But I want to make sure that they have an environment that they feel like they can also come into, that they can laugh, that they can feel safe, that they can feel comforted, that if they need hugs, they can get their hugs, whatever it is for them. It's a
lot of work.
Yeah. But then I've had other team dynamics where that's not what they wanted. They just kind of wanted to come in, do their work, maybe on occasion kind of cross paths and have some conversation. And that's where they were at. But this is, for me right now, this is a different team. But overall, regardless of the dynamics of my team, for me at its core has always been people have to be able to come in and feel safe.
That's good.
They have to come in and feel safe.
That's why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah. And we go to Jesus and we're always safe. Mm-hmm. We're always going to be safe. There's always going to be refuge. We're always going to feel cared for. And so then we have to be able to translate that into our environment, that in my sphere of influence and in my circle, this is a safe zone. Yeah. And the environment that I'm going to create around it is always going to be safe. I know what it's like to have a job and then you go home and it's not safe. Mm-hmm. To go home and it's like, it's cruddy, chaos. It's crappy. You're walking on eggshells, whatever the situation is. I know what that's like to go home and it's not safe. And then to go home, then to go to work and it feels like, I don't want to be here. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's how can a person just survive in life in that? This is why we end up having all these mental health issues on top of everything else, right?
So like this is going to be an environment.
Because nobody can go anywhere to where they can just feel like I can just kick my feet up, or I can be myself, or I can, or I'm not going to be judged, or whatever the case is. So it's like, so that's been really important to me. I want anybody that is within my team to feel that way. And
so good.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, there's just a man who I really like admire, who's an author, Bob Hassan. He's a businessman and a writer, and he talks about he owns his business, and in that business they like support the family so well. And he owns his own business, so he can do a lot of what he wants. But I mean, just love the idea of like him. He is the church, also an extension of the church, and blessing so well these families and the people who work for him, like above and beyond, and like God, and then like honoring him, like just a beautiful system. It's just so good. And you can do that in your own subtle ways.
I think that's beautiful too, because it's like, you know, Jesus, like he flipped the script for us, right? We get ahead by serving. You know, we don't get ahead by elevating ourselves into a position. You know, it's like God says that he elevates us in his proper timing, you know, but we have been called to actually be servants. And sometimes we get put into positions of leadership in some way, and we immediately think, okay, so now this is an opportunity for people to serve me.
I'm going to put you down, though.
Yeah. So now that I'm in this position, you come and serve me. You come and take care of me. You bring me what I need. You check all the boxes for me, and you keep doing all this stuff. And that's not actually what we've been called to do. No. I mean, the person with the most authority who we've ever seen walk this earth, Jesus, actually washed feet. You know, he served people. He got down and dirty with people. He took care of their needs in a very personal way. And so it's like, we have to, if we're going to model after that,
that's good.
Our first and our primary responsibility when we look over people's lives and lead them is always to serve them. And what does that look like? You know, it's going to be different, I think, for everybody, but I think that's what that person is doing for sure.
That's so good. So if you could leave someone who, like, that's it, but if you can leave someone who's listening with something, like, especially, let's say they want to go into your field of work, what's something you can just, like, a word of advice or something, like, to leave them with, or just someone that maybe it's not related to your field of work, but something you feel just to leave the people with today.
Ooh.
I know you left everything. You dropped all the.
So I think I know my ADD kind of like.
No, it was not. That was great, Mika.
I think for one, with that question, if anybody is wanting to go into any type of human service field, social work, any of that type of stuff, you got to take care of the cobwebs in your closet. Like you got to become a healthy person. I've been in situations with people to where then they're exposed to things that other people are going through, and what it does, it brings up their own trauma. You know, it's like they thought they were healed from something and they weren't, and it brings up their own trauma, or they brings up things that they weren't really aware of, and they end up becoming this kind of unhealthy kind of thing in the profession. Or they treat people wrong, or whatever the situation is because of that, you know. And so I think that, especially with human services, where you're going to be taking care of other people's lives, especially if it's children or the elderly or people that can't speak out for themselves, you've got to come into it from a healthy place, and you got to make sure that you've taken care of yourself. Get regular therapy, whatever you need to do, but you got to take good care of yourself.
How can you help people if you're not?
For sure, you know. And then I think outside of that, anybody who is going to step into leadership is understand that your role is not to manage people. People can manage themselves. So let people be adults. Don't try to manage people. Right. Don't have that power struggle, for sure. And just lead people well and love them, and just make people be able to know that they can try to come to you, and they can come and bring their best, and whatever that is for themselves. But I don't demand people's best. I want them to figure out what that is for themselves, because we have to support people well. So,
Mika,
that's like what I would say. But
fires. Just like matches all over the place. That was so good.
You know what I want to do this weekend?
Some drums?
Which I'm not. So I'm going to go to Texas and go see my granddaughters. I'm super excited.
Yay.
But I have been dying. So one of the things I do for stress relief is I watch 3-hour Indian Bollywood movies.
Really?
Yes.
I've watched some of those. That's different. So talk about secrets, what you do alone.
And not very many people know this, but I do. And first of all, cinematically, they're geniuses.
I have a question after. I've seen a few. I wonder if have you seen the ones I've seen?
Possibly.
There's there's one about the guys in the college and they're engineers. Have you seen that one? So good. Okay. It's so good.
Is it because the guys are engineers?
They're engineers and they kind of suck at it, and they're trying to be like find their passion. I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay.
Know,
so
but it's so relaxing for me, and I'm hoping that some point when I'm in the hotel room,
that's so funny.
late at night,
You'll have 3 hours,
and that I'm going to have 3 hours to myself with nothing to do, no emails, no nothing, because I'm going to be checked out of work,
Good
and
for
I am
you.
going to watch a 3-hour.
Where do you find them? Just Google them. There's a lot on YouTube.
Netflix.
Oh.
Netflix makes it happen.
See, I used to watch them on YouTube back before Netflix was like, when it was just probably like not as common to have those videos. And they're like a full thing.
It's a full thing. I mean, you get romance, you get the drama, you get the dancing, the singing, the action, the comedy. It's true.
I thank you for
the costumes.
Yes,
you get everything on there.
Lots of the romantic ones, like romantic comedies.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah.
If I have 3 hours ever, I'm just gonna pop it on. That's a good little hobby you have. Well, thanks, Mika. Thank you for
Mariah.
Coming.
Love you so much.
So good. There's always more, but this is all we have for now.
Okay.
Maybe we'll bring a microphone with us when we hang out and just chat more. Put it on my phone.
We've had some good conversations.
We have.
Yes.
All right. Well, have a great day, everybody listening. Bless you, and ta-ta.
Bye.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
You almost had it. I was like,
I know.
I'm like, it's happening.
I know. I never land the plane all the way. And so today I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I was like, nope, ta-ta.